This is In the Loop. I'm Christian Bryant. We've got a lot of ground to cover tonight, but we'll start here. There's an old saying about politics and religion that these two topics might not be the best foundation for polite conversation. My dad likes to throw in a third, sports, but lucky for me, nobody is entertaining a Carolina Panthers fan. But turns out there's some data out there that suggests Americans might want to learn a bit more about their neighbor's religion. As is, there are some serious gaps in what we know about various faiths in the US. And some faith leaders say that lack of knowledge can make it easier for misinformation to thrive. The US is a nation of many faiths. Recent data shows the majority of Americans do identify as Christians, almost a quarter are unaffiliated to any religious group, and then just a small percentage are Jewish or Muslim. That's the reality. But the perception among Americans is very different. When Americans were surveyed about the nation's religious makeup, they were way off, estimating that Jewish people and Muslims made up a full half of the country. This misunderstanding of America's religious groups extends to what they believe as well. 538 cites one example. Only 1 in 4 Americans knows that the holiday of Rosh Hashanah celebrates the Jewish New Year. That's a big one. One factor here could be that many Americans, despite our religious diversity, just simply don't know anyone of another faith. Pew survey data from a few years back showed about 4 in 10 Americans didn't know a single Jewish person. About 6 in 10 didn't know a Muslim person. Now, faith leaders, including many Jewish rabbis, are on a mission to educate, especially as anti-Semitism becomes increasingly out in the open and feeds on that lack of education about religious minority groups. National correspondent Jesse Cohen has the story.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It's a lesson embedded in us as children that many think has dissolved.
We know that hatred breeds hatred. When you're in an environment in which there's a little bit of racism that's acceptable, so a lot of racism will soon flourish.
Most recently, Rabbi Sharon Browse's words are directed at the rise in anti-Semitism.
And we see how violent language has led to and will continue to lead to actual acts of violence, which really raises the stakes on our responsibility to respond.
As the senior and founding rabbi of ICAR, a leading-edge Jewish community, she emphasizes anti-Semitism doesn't just affect the 2% of the U.S. population that are Jewish.
It's not embarrassing to be a racist, an anti-Semite, a bigot, a homophobe, a transphobe. It's not embarrassing for people anymore. The shame has been taken out of that kind of racism and bigotry, and that's very dangerous for all of us.
Los Angeles is a city experts point to that showcases the diversity of the Jewish faith.
There are white Jews and people of color who are Jews. There are Jews who are from the Middle East, and Jews who are from Morocco, Jews who are from Latin America, Jews who are from Russia and Ukraine, and Jews from Israel that all live here, Jews from Iran that live here, which are all separate, their own separate minorities.
So that's exactly why Rabbi Noah Farkas, the president and CEO of the Jewish Federation of Greater Los Angeles, says we can't discuss anti-Semitism without connecting the consequences it has to many people.
The last several years, we've seen a 300% rise in anti-Semitism. What might start with anti-Semitism might end with misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia, anti-Asian hate, anti-Black racism. It could lead in all of these different directions. White supremacy in that way, just in that vein, fuels all of that.
Because it means that when anti-Semitism manifests in our society in this way, it's actually a danger not only to Jews, but it's a danger to democracy. It's a danger to movements for justice in our country.
One of the more prominent issues these rabbis see is the current level of societal tolerance.
We become inured to new levels of violence, new levels of hate speech, new levels of hate actions, hate crimes.
This is one reason law enforcement agencies are encouraging reporting.
Even though it might be a non-criminal hate incident, we still take it very seriously as a law enforcement agency.
Detective Jan Wong is the hate crimes coordinator with the LA County Sheriff's Department.
Today it's hate speech and it's non-criminal, but tomorrow it might be a crime.
Both as a detective and as a human, she says diversity within their department is one of their greatest strengths.
For me, especially as an Asian American, I grew up in the community that I, now serve in law enforcement in. You see some of these crimes or incidents and you think, well, that could be be, my mom. That could be my family member.
The same goes for these rabbis who say their focus is on always speaking up and standing beside allies.
And knowing and affirming in word and in action that we actually stand together, because an attack on any one of us is really an attack on all of us.
In Los Angeles, I'm Jessie Cohen reporting.